Probably help just in case there's any distractions in the background. So I work with the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative, which is an initiative of the Council for Secondary Education. This community of practice meeting is really focused on our student basic needs work in Kentucky. That we, hosted the Student Success Summit at the end of February and really had some great conversations with a large, probably most of you who are here in this room. But certainly this community of practice is open to everyone in the state who cares about these issues. And so we're just really excited to be able to come back together, hear what may have been going on your campuses since the summit, but then also where we want to move as we go forward. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. Okay. So have y'all used Mentimeter before? I'm a huge fan of Mentimeter. It allows us to really be a little bit more interactive inside the meeting, especially when you have a larger group of folks to kind of get their opinions and just see where the energy and the momentum is. So we are going to be doing some Mentimeter polling today. I have a quick welcome. We have an amazing panel of 3 different campuses who are going to share how their basic needs work is going and what it looks like. We're going to have the bulk of the time spent in smaller groups, kind of having just conversations. We have some great topics that we'll be able to share or discuss, and then we'll just follow it up with what we can do next. Okay. So just a little bit of centering around student basic needs. And I know that all of you probably have your own definition or kind of thinking about what are those basic needs that we're focused on. We're not trying to be exclusive here. The basic needs are the basic needs, and it's whatever the students need that are non-academic barriers to their success. And so what we are looking at is really a more holistic and comprehensive approach to increasing access to supports for our students when they struggle with non-academic barriers. And then also kind of a secondary element of this work is to make sure that we are increasing access to post-secondary education for a lot of over 400,000 individuals in the Commonwealth who receive public benefits and don't yet have a college education. So we're focused on both of those different pathways. So also just a little bit of level setting around what is a community of practice and what can it do for us. It's a pretty common thing nowadays. I mean, we have learning communities for our students. Like this is essentially a learning community for us as practitioners. And what we just want to do is have a space where we can come together and share our work, share what we're each doing individually on our campuses, because we know it looks different on every campus. The context is different, the priorities are different, the resources are different, but we probably have a lot more in common than we realize. We also probably share a lot of challenges in common. And when one person has already addressed a challenge or was successful in overcoming a challenge, how can we learn together so that we can all kind of benefit from that knowledge? We are also here to build our network, to really get to know our counterparts at other institutions across the state in Kentucky, so that we can rely on each other as resources, even outside of a formal convening like this. And then finally, our goal with any kind of engagement where you spend your time is super valuable. I'm sure that you want it to improve your practice, to improve the work that you're doing. And so that is absolutely our goal here today. So I would love, if y'all don't mind, we're going to try Mentimeter out. You go to menti.com. If you're on a computer, this is very easy to do. You just type that into your search bar. You can also do it on your phone from your Chrome or your whatever search feature you use. You do menti.com. And then you put the code in so that you can join this poll. And it's 15060021. And you will see the question pop up and you can type in your answer and we will see everybody who is joining us today. We've got Owensboro, Eastern Kentucky, Big Sandy, Madisonville, U of L, Europe, TICAS, University of Kentucky, Bellarmine, Transy, Bluegrass, Moorhead, Western, Everybody Counts Initiative. It's fantastic. System Office at KCTCS. Oh, Office of Adult Education. Thank you all so much for being here. This is exciting. Jefferson, Who else is here in the room? Anybody else? Murray State. Love it. It's a great group of folks with just all across our state and our institutions. South Central, hey Sky. Shauna. Somerset. Okay, awesome. Well, this also helps us warm up a little bit around Mentimeter. We have some more fun. Okay, so as you think about the student basic needs efforts on your campus, this is kind of a rating system. How is it going? And so on a scale from struggling to amazing, is basic needs a top institutional priority? Do you have broad campus engagement, faculty and staff, various functional areas? Do you feel like you have strong communications and information for your students to access? You feel like you have sufficient capacity to meet the need? How are your community partnerships? How is your data gathering and analysis so that you can kind of show what's your ROI on basic needs support? So let's see how everybody is. Good. Wow, this is great. I'm really, really pleased to see the top institutional priority as our highest ranking. We are on our way to amazing there. And robust community partnerships, close second. Great. Okay. Well, that just really, I think, helps give us like we're all in the same boat here. we're at least we're not struggling on any of these 6 items. So that's really great. We're somewhere in the middle and moving toward amazing. So that's really great. I think that there's probably a lot to discuss here. Okay, so now in a word, just one word, how would you say the basic needs work is going on your campus? I think this is a word cloud. So like if people are repeating words, those words get bigger and bigger. Love it. Progress, challenging, diligence, beginning stages, progress, improving, growing, mediocre, evolving, exciting. What? Developing. Whoa, infancy. All of this. Awesome. Growing. The biggest word, progress and growing. That sounds good to me. Okay. Might have one more. Okay, 2 more, I think. So what are you wrestling with? You have more than one word here if you want to have a short phrase, but like, what are some of those like sticky issues that you're trying to figure out? Okay, funding, yep. Community partnerships, capacity, ownership, priority, resource and support, collaboration, transportation, making connections, growth, leadership buy-in, student apathy. Oh, I'd love to hear more about that. Limited resources, capacity, resources and funding, local community resource registry, ownership, uncertainty of process changes at times, direction, communication, workflow, logistics, over agenda, attention, profit support, collaboration, funding, mental centeredness. No one needs to stay in the background. This is a campus-wide approach. So please, I hope all of you feel like your voice and your perspective is really valuable. Okay. Now, at the end of this session, I'll send out this deck, and so you all can even see all of these responses that have been added in. United Front needed. Okay, so I see a lot of funding, capacity, communication, kind of leadership, ownership, collaboration across units, so clarifying the ownership piece. Okay, got it. All right, this is great. We got one more, everybody. So this is kind of the magic wand question. If you could wave your magic wand and do something, like, what is your big wish? Do not feel resource constrained when you are dreaming big here. What is that big wish? What students need most? Yeah. Student voice, that is a big wish. Capacity, more money. Staffing specifically from our Department for Community-Based Services. $1 million in a coordinator position. Funding, unlimited resource availability. I did say you did not have to be resource constrained. Unlimited resources, designated staff for an office, meeting all student needs, dedicated staff and funding. Students have all their needs met and are able to thrive at college and career funding. Figuring out how to motivate and retain adult students. That is a good wish. Support needs for fully online learners. Or integrated comprehensive support. More staff and funding. Help students understand themselves enough to take out a goal and move towards it. People to listen. More business and community partnerships, funding for meal plans and housing for Pell eligible students. Best way to connect students with those needs, ownership of all units, more staff, streamline the process. You know, for the first time, I think I was at EKU's Food Security Forum last week, and they asked this same question, what's your big wish? And, you know, it kind of occurred to me that this is really an emerging functional area that we are trying to all kind of piece together across units and across, you know, resource pools. And, but we're not really approaching it like it's a functional unit, you know, where it's like the career center and you've got a team and they work with all students or they're supposed to serve all students. So we're really being asked to do quite a lot without that infrastructure, which, you know, it's evolving. So that is certainly, I think, going to be the next wave. Students take responsibility for their successes and failures. Okay. Well, I really appreciate all of you engaging in that way. I think that we've really kind of seen that there's a lot of commonality across our different campuses and perspectives, but also there's some big, you know, issues that we're wrestling with, and we definitely need some support. So that's why we're here together. I'm really excited to kind of next go to listening to some of our campus partners with how it's going on their campuses. This is something that we'll just be able to rotate as we go through our different community of practice meetings and highlighting different folks to kind of take the stage and share a little bit about what's going on. I've chosen, or I reached out to Eastern Kentucky, Bellarmine, and Maysville. They've all three been really engaged in this work with the collaborative since we really kicked off the first wave of a community of practice in January of 21. So I know they have a lot of energy on their campuses, and I'm just really excited to get to hear from them. I am going to, let's see, Nan, could you pin Liz, Ray, and Leanne for me? Okay, as that's going on, we're gonna kick off. Ray, are you there? You are, Ray. Hey. So let's just get started. Just tell us a little bit about the basic needs support that you're most focused on at EKU and how it's going.
Absolutely. So we are, and I believe that my colleague, Dr. Vance, is on here as well, who has been a leader in all of this work. So our two big areas that we are really focused on are food security, and that is also sort of a campus-wide effort that to what Lily spoke about. We had a food security forum that was led by two of our faculty on campus and in our anthropology and food nutrition and science program. So that is one area that we have a lot of campus-wide movement on, is how to address food security on campus. Our other, one of our other large projects that we are focused on that's come out of this collaborative work and that really came from the summit that we attended is creating a website to house all of our resources. So campus-wide, specifically focused on campus-wide, but also area resources for students. So something that Dr. Vance has been working towards a lot and noticing a need for is that students who have basic needs, which we would also include mental health needs broadly, but just student support, have to go to a lot of different areas to find it. And it can feel sort of ping-pongy among staff, which we can only imagine how that feels for students. So what we are working on and what we have a meeting coming up with our marketing and brand management team is to create a website that has all of the information that students are looking for when they have any sort of need. So we looked at quite a few websites from our area schools, so other Kentucky institutions, to see what had other folks put together and how to make it really user-friendly and student-centered. So the kind of language that's used, the ways to get students to those websites, and what sort of questions to ask students so that they are getting access to the direct resource. And then the intentionality of making sure that we're not just sending them to a different landing page where they have to then the student has to click through in order to find the resource. So if it is, for example, I need to talk to someone in a health counseling, then the link goes directly to the intake form and not just to the health counseling website where the student has to filter back through. So we're going to meet with our brand and marketing team this week or next week to talk through what the functionality of the website looks like, and then pull together. We have a number of people across campus who are also invested and have started some of this work. So we're going to pull all of us together so that we are not duplicating efforts and we're all sort of guiding and leading from our perspectives. And so that is where that project is at. We feel, I think we feel pretty confident that we could launch it by the fall to have that available and ready for students, just as the start of ensuring that students have access to the needs that they, to have access to the resources to fill their needs.
I'm sure communications is a top priority for a lot of folks. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I'd love to head to Liz. How's it going, Liz?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on. And I have several colleagues on the call as well. So if they want to add any insights, and they've been fundamental to it all, it's Sarah Stevens and Lori King. But some of the things that we have happened since the summit, which is exciting that it's just been a month, is one, we fully launched a clothing closet that is right next to our food pantry. So we're really excited about that, and seeing that within a week, all the socks were gone. You know, it's like the need is there. It's gone. It's gone. So we're ordering like crazy. So thanks to the Illumina grant for allowing us to do that. And now word is out that donations can come in. You know, it's just the message gets spread quickly with alums and the community. So that's really exciting. And also community partners that want to be a part of it. So like Dress for Success has already reached out to be like, hey, you've got this clothing closet. Can we come with a mobile unit to also offer? So good stuff. We're also seeing campus. Should I keep going, Lily? I know.
Yeah, what was that?
Should I keep going? Is that okay to give? Okay. We're also having campus-wide collaboration. So our team of student basic needs within the student affairs division did a pitch to the development team about how student basic needs are so critical, and storytelling about what Bellarmine students are experiencing. So they are going to work on a campaign for specifically student basic needs. We're going to have it at our Day of Giving that's coming up. We're going to have a button on the website. And Ray, to your point about a website, that is also our summer project. In the meantime, for students who are coming to Bellarmine and doing like their orientation that starts in April, May, we've created a one-pager. So several of my colleagues, we've created a one-pager that includes where they can get resources on campus as like, okay, this is like going to be just a cushion until we get that website launched, because there's total agreement, in fact, about the ping-ponging of students from here to there. And so I really appreciated that the student basic needs focus group that you all have organized for us, Lily. They already gave me some feedback because we did our focus groups this month with students, and they were like, mental health is a true concern of these students and access to resources, but also the point of contact for student basic needs. They all said my name, which is great, but you know, whenever there's turnover or if I'm not here on campus, like there should be multiple people that they can think of that are related to meeting student basic needs. So that's just some of the stuff that we've been working on.
Right. Now, Leanne, I know, so Leanne, you're with Maysville Community and Technical College, and I know you have a different, you are it, right? Are you the main point of contact for all things basic needs?
Yes, I am the main point of contact for all things basic needs. I've flood through our other campuses as well, but they mainly come to me.
Well,
So-
please share with us how, you know, what are your priorities right now at Maysville and how's it going?
We're going good. Sorry, you won't see my face. I had a migraine this morning and I'm just on my way into work. We started off with, you know, our traditional, in the beginning, our basic needs were people needing resources for housing, food, and then we kind of, this semester, what we focused on with the summit is our technology and IT. A lot of our campuses and students did not have computers. So we kind of looked at that, and as soon as we have them, they're flying out the doors as soon as we get them. So what we did, we talked with our CFO, and our IT are working on that. We're trying to come up with an initiative to see how we can, you know, provide more laptops to students, and, you know, the technology and the Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is always an issue with our students because they're non-traditional working students, and to help work, and they're working on that currently. We felt the need of that, you know, as you know, the beginning of the semester, as soon as we had those laptops, the laptops were just leaving. I mean, we couldn't keep them on campus. Family Scholar House has mentioned, we've partnered with them as well, and I think they have helped us out with some laptops for our students as well. So our IT and CFO are coming together to come up with something, a way to help our students with, you know, not only just the technology and the Wi-Fi piece, but also the computers that they need, the laptops that they need. So they're currently working on that as we speak. I just talked to Jessica yesterday, and she kind of ran that through with me about, you know, what they're working on and how they're working on that.
Thanks, Leanne. I'm just going to stick with you for the next one. And I was wondering, you know, have there been any specific or, you know, barriers or challenges that you have overcome through your process of building up resources for students?
We have a lot of challenges here in the Maysville area and our surrounding counties because we're small. Because, I mean, we don't have many resources. So Family Scholar House has been a great resource for us. Our community partners have been a great resource for us. We do have some funding that we use from local community partners that we have talked about. But I mean, the resources have always been a big issue, and we're trying to overcome that. But, you know, being in a small community and where we're at, it's hard to get those resources. So that's kind of where we're at. We're trying to network with that as well and to come up with funding for that.
Thank you, Ann. That's the community partnerships is a great approach to the small community. Thank you. Liz, what about you all?
Yeah, funding is always an issue, so we've been going for as many grants as possible. So of course, as I mentioned, the Lumina one, but we're also in the process of writing a grant that's due in a few weeks to also support, especially around faculty professional development, that they in turn could be informed, and goes back to that network that Ray and I were talking about, that now your faculty can also tell you where these resources are and you don't have to depend on one office. And then capacity building is another. So for example, my team every week actually drives the shuttle to Dare to Care to fill our pantry, which takes, 3 hours of the day. And so now, partnering with Sarah here on my team to see if a graduate assistant could join and help with capacity, or student, could we have a paid student position to help us with taking care of the pantry, and just making student leadership roles out of this, because what critical skills to be learning and giving back to your own campus community. So we already just filled all the leadership roles for Knight's Pantry in the Closet for the upcoming year, because students are interested in this work. So just thinking about capacity and offering students this leadership opportunity.
Great solution. Thanks, Liz. Ray? That you can do.
Yeah, I would echo what both of our colleagues just said. I think in addition, Liz, something that you said was you're named as the person for basic needs. I think that happens for Dr. Vance probably too, where one person is wearing many hats and is just associated with providing for student basic needs. And so really helping to share responsibility across campus, and then just the time it takes to collaborate in sort of a sustainable and meaningful way, just making sure that you have the right people at the table, coordinating lots of schedules, and then the sort of impermanence of people. So our Colonel's Cupboard is led by Avista, so that turnover happens every 2 years. As we have busier schedules, as full-time staff who's providing basic needs isn't part of our core responsibilities, all of our schedules change depending on the time of year that it is. So helping to bring people on board to help share some of the responsibility to make sure that it keeps moving when, and it's not just tied to one person or a couple of people.
I also wanted to invite anybody to put a question in the chat if you would like to ask the panelists anything specific. My kind of last question was just around the case making for the importance of increasing support for basic needs work, and how do you go about putting together that pitch for development, and reaching out to community partnerships, the grant writing, case making, what are some of maybe it's key data elements that you're tracking and providing? Like, how are you making this case on your campuses?
I'll chime in, and I want to be very clear, similar to Laura in the chat. Students said my name in that focus group, but gosh golly, Sarah and Leslie Maxey, like all these other people are very involved. Also, I picked the students pretty much for the focus group, so of course they're going to say my name because they associated me with the focus group, so there's some bias there. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. But regarding grants and these pitches that we've done, we've pulled data from how many students are receiving emergency funding and the average amount that they're requesting, which they can have approximately $400, but that money ran out in a certain amount of time. So on average, what do we need every semester to guarantee that we can meet that emergency need? We also we keep the pantry anonymous. However, we are able to, from unique student user IDs. We don't do anything with names, but the unique student IDs allows us to capture, since its inception, the number of unique users and then how many people they take the food home to. And those numbers, can be jarring for some people who are like, wow, there really is this incredible need in the city and on campus. So presenting numbers, but then I also think there's such an important qualitative stories to tell. And the students who take advantage of the pantry, I know that there is the anonymous component, but the student leadership team that runs the pantry, majority of them use the pantry and are very willing to share their own story. So they table at the involvement fair, et cetera. So it's not me being like, can you actually tell people that you've needed this? They want to tell it because they're trying to remove the stigma. So I think it's very important for us to have our students tell their story about why it's necessary.
Thanks, Liz. So we have a question in the chat. Can someone speak more to student leadership roles in their efforts and how you were able to make a case for students to get the funding for stipend? What challenge did you run into with this? Thank you. And I think Ray and Leanne are still with us.
Yes, I'm still here.
Ray's just texted me her internet just died. She doesn't know what's
Dr.
happening.
Leanne, if you would like to join us as well.
I'll let somebody go first to kind of set the tone.
Liz, do you want to talk about student leadership and how you got the funding?
I can barely hear. I don't know what's wrong with my speaker. Can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay. So as far as the funding for our pantry, we applied for a program, a grant here, I guess, with one of our community partners at Maysville. And they gave us a stipend that we have to do for each year. We weren't the only participant for that program. There were other surrounding like schools and whatnot that also apply for this. So I use that funding, and sometimes I can use that funding for other things for our students. We did have the CARES money also on our campus, and I think we do have a little bit of that left that we've also been allowed to use. The students have to go in and fill something in through our PeopleSoft system through their student account, and a lot why they're needing the funding and what the funding is for. Generally, most of our students always get it regardless of what it's for. But they're using that as well for any type of things to offset, whether that be for like, sometimes it be like a book, or sometimes I think we've helped with like utilities. I know I've gotten funding from a church to help with housing for like an apartment, excuse me, a motel room. And we mainly use that fund, but I always have to ask when I can use that fund and what I can use that fund to. I hate to always have to feel like I always got to ask people for money. When I go, just like I have it, I wish I just had something that I could just use myself and monitor and go from there. But I always have to ask. Generally, they always, a lot for anything that our students need or what the funding or what the stipends are for. But the challenges that I run into is that usually it's the people that are mostly in our business administration, and sometimes they're not on campus. So that leaves me with leaving a student or someone on hold until they get back to, I can get that, to ask for that funding. More so likely we do give it to them, but it's the barrier that I found is that that person that holds that lock and key, so to speak, is sometimes in a meeting or off campus or on another campus, and I have to wait to get to them.
Liz or Laura?
I kind of hear two different things too here. First, the funding piece, but also how we're tying in students and working side by side with students to address these needs. And I think that that's important. Our food security forum that we had last Friday had a student panel, had students at every table, and they really guided the conversation. And we learned a great deal. Like some think that our food pantry is too hidden away, and some thinks that it should be right there front and center. But it was a good, robust conversation. And then several people have talked about emergency funds, and our emergency fund at EKU is very tightly tied to development. We have a memorandum of understanding with development. They do the fundraising for it. Our giving day in April, it will be one of the top 3 things that people can choose to donate to. We have a separate link for it, so I can just share that out on social media, give here, or you can choose a different area. And we're very careful to, of course, protect students' dignity. Every once in a while, we have students that I meet with when they receive emergency funds that say outright, if there is anything I can do to help raise money for this fund, I sign me up. I want to help. And so we enlist their aid. Our EKU alumni magazine will come out shortly, where it's featuring 2 students that are kind of becoming the spokespeople for our emergency fund. One was impacted by the tornadoes in Western Kentucky, the other the floods in Eastern Kentucky. And so we've enlisted some of their help, but only when they're willing, and kind of only when we've awarded hundreds of students with the emergency fund, but I wait and kind of feel the student out. If they're going to say something like, I want to help, then they'll write personal notes to donors, because it is all donor based. But it's been going really well. Been very happy with that and how that's been headed. But the Food Security Forum is starting momentum now in this new area, and we're very excited about that and the inclusion of students in it.
Okay, Liz, try to touch on some of those the student leadership roles and some of the creative funding mechanisms for you all.
Okay. Well, first, if you have federal work study positions on your campus, it is a perfect role for students to get their federal work study funding, to work in the pantry, to work in the closet. So consider that. That's actually how 4 of our leadership team on the pantry. So already it's a need that they have financially, but then there are also students who are closely tied. So there's just a lot of meaning making for them to be working in those. I also think that with the numbers and the qualitative stories that I already spoke to, I think a pitch to your enrollment team about a graduate assistant, that's what we went for. Like, you have a really good reason to have a graduate assistant, and what good experience this could offer a graduate assistant in a master's or doctoral program that could be sustainable for a few years for you. So they could really work on some projects and have more complex projects over time. And then, of course, grant funding. If you can write it into a grant to create student stipends and faculty stipends, but student stipends for leadership roles, that has been another place that we've pulled. So thinking of, national, like Bonner Foundation, local campus compact. So just consider grant writing.
And I can't believe I didn't mention this, but our food pantry is run by somebody that's an AmeriCorps volunteer. So if you ever see an opportunity to grab an AmeriCorps person, do that. It's phenomenal. The problem is they can sometimes re-up for an additional year, but usually it's a 1-year thing. So just as they start getting momentum, then you have a new person that you're training, but it keeps it staffed, and it really does help. And it's free.
Okay. I want to just you guys can feel free to keep throwing responses to everyone's questions in the chat if you have your own ideas as well. We are going to move forward with the agenda. I'm excited. I want to thank our panel so much for sharing. That was really, really wonderful and great to just hear all of your individual insights on what's been going on. So for the next bit here, we're going to do 2 different rounds of breakout groups. All right. Now, I want to totally thank Katie Adamczyk for having a beer with me on Friday and helping me think through what should these breakout room topics be. And she's like, well, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about how do we help, provide more training to our faculty and staff, really increase the ownership and the engagement around student basic needs work across campus. So that's going to be breakout room number 1. What are the effective communications that we need in order to really raise the collective consciousness of our students, staff, and faculty, and ensure that the information that they need is very accessible to them? Some of the mysterious components of helping your students access public benefits. They aren't mysterious, but Carrie knows everything about this, so she will demystify if you have questions there. And then finally, thinking about the case making. And what are we doing on our campuses to really tell our story, tell our student story, and make the case for the return on investment that we get every time we help a student and they are able to continue their enrollment and continue toward their goals. So Nana's gonna make 4 breakout rooms, and you will each get to choose a breakout room. Now we'll be in there for about 15 to 18 minutes, and then we'll come back and you'll go to a second breakout room. So you'll get to talk on 2 of these topics here. So kind of think about that. Go to one first, and then know that you'll get to do a second round. And then after those breakout conversations, we'll then come back and we'll just kind of have some share outs. Like, what are our big takeaways that we got from these different conversations and from chatting with our peers? All right, Nan, feel free to launch us. So you guys should see breakout rooms. I see folks are joining them. I am going to go into data and impact.
I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, so down on the bottom, there's a little icon called breakout rooms. Do you see that?
Yes,
Okay, so I think if you click on that, then a pop-up will show you the 4 different options and you can
yes.
click on the join
Thank you.
button. Great. 11:20. We're doing awesome. I'm not trying to take up the full 2 hours, but I'm really glad that we kind of reserved a little bit of extra time here. So we'd love to hear kind of what were some of the takeaways from each of the rooms, personal takeaways, like collective takeaways, so that we have plenty of time here to just kind of share out. And not the like facilitator person, but just everybody from the room. What was your personal takeaway? We'd love to hear some suggestions. Don't be shy.
My biggest one is that we're not alone in trying to figure out how to assist these students and allow them to keep their dignity and privacy and all the other things that go along with that. And try to pick up a few ideas here and there in terms of maybe how we could do that a little bit better.
We discussed like what's happening around communication with students. And I thought this was really cool with Murray State. They do a student resource fair once a month and bring in offices at the school and vendors for the students to connect with, so they can really build that relationship over time with these offices and vendors and be connected to multiple resources. I know KCTCS also has an app for students that they can have on their phone and TVs around campus to relay information. I know at Bellarmine, we're going to consider an open door Friday, in the fall and spring, to just keep communication open year round. So those are some really, really cool ideas around communication.
I just something I think I've learned starting at the conference and also just from conversations is that I don't know if some of my colleagues realize just how much data I have. Admissions has a ton of data, and I can innovate ways to get data if I don't have it, and so I know it may seem like a stretch, but if you're ever trying to think of a way to collect data on students, maybe try admissions. They might already know.
Mhm.
One of the things I heard in our conversations was just wanting a general, sounded to me just like a simple resource on understanding the basic public benefits available and some of the eligibility rules, so people can feel confident in at least saying, here's what the program is and what it does and what's expected, and you look like you could potentially be eligible. So I encourage you to apply. And in some instances, some people in our groups were actually helping people apply and setting them up at a computer. So sounds like a little bit of information sharing would be helpful, as well as understanding resources available in the community beyond just public benefits. And I did mention there was the resource that Family Scholar House had talked to us about. I can't remember the name of it, Lily, but it's something that I think would be good to share, like we talked about, as a kind of set of resources after the group.
And I am really excited that the next community of practice meeting on April 20th, the focus will be on community partnerships. And we'll have a panel with Family Scholar House, with DCBS, and I've invited Thrive KY, who's like a statewide coalition of community-based organizations working on basic needs, to present as well. But yes, Carrie, I'll throw that in here. They have a couple of resources I'll pack.
Speaking of community partnerships, can I do a quick plug?
Yeah.
Okay, so I posted in the chat that Empty Bowls is this Friday in Richmond. And if you're not familiar with Empty Bowls, it's a food insecurity and hunger relief program that we do in partnership with let's see, Liberty Family Shelter, God's Outreach Community Bank, Home Meals Delivery, and Salvation Army of Madison County. The art department at EKU donates bowls that students have created, and so you come in a $15 donation, and you get a bowl and some soup and some bread, and you can sit and hang out and talk to people, or you can get it to go. So it's at where is it? I was just reading it. Baptist. First Baptist Church on Eastern Bypass from 11 to 3 on Friday.
Lily, I'll just share, in one of our groups, we talked about all the things, right? So the QR codes and putting them in bathroom stalls, the text messages, platforms, and even the way we use simpler language on applications and all of these links and things like that. But I just want to remind that, the business sector now calls for, it used to be 7 times we would have to do outreach, to one person to get them to pay attention to whatever it is you're communicating. It's not 7 anymore, it's up to 30. And so we really have to be, excuse me for not remembering where I read that, but I'm like, ooh. But yeah, so multiple times. And so just, a word to say, continue to be innovative in how we're doing all of this. And yeah, it can never be enough.
Phyllis, I just want to add one thing that came up in our group with both groups that I met with actually, which is I think a recurring challenge, is how when we're talking about communicating with faculty and staff about the resources that exist on campus, the challenge that adjunct instructors and the incredibly large transient community that is our campus faculty and staff is, and how to continue to get information out to that group. If it does take 30 times to get to our students, how do we make sure we're getting through to our faculty, especially those who might be new to campus or really may not ever consider themselves fully ingrained in our campus, the way that a full-time, faculty member might be, or a staff member that's been on campus for 20 years. So we didn't have any perfect solutions to this, but just a group to continue to think about how are we socializing this, because a lot of times the folks that have the most contact with our students are the least plugged in the faculty world as well.
Our data group was small but mighty. We had really good conversations. Katie, I don't suppose you wouldn't mind sharing your wisdom, like our closing comment basically about the importance of coaching support along with emergency funding support?
Sure, yeah. So I'm at the University of Louisville, and my team does persistence grants for institutional bills or personal needs, and our Dean of Students office manages our emergency funds. But one of the things we're always looking at with our persistence fund, which is institutional money, is how we do the awards and whether to do targeted awards, which Georgia State is known for, where they look at students' accounts and they're like, oh, look at this money that these students need, $200 or whatever to be able to enroll. We'll just apply money to their accounts versus having intervention. So to receive a persistence grant, they have to work with the student success coordinator here, having coaching, at least one conversation with a financial plan, understand what's going on with their financial aid. It's a pretty in-depth initiative that we have that takes a lot of work, but there's new research that came out in January that I don't know, I should be able to locate, but showing that targeted awards by themselves do not have the ROI that intervention and coaching support does. And so when I was thinking about this with all of our, basic needs conversation of how do we also then help students come up with a long-term plan, how do we help them think about their need, not as just a need today, right? But how are they going to address it long-term and have those coaching and support relationships, which some of the institutions on the call, it sounds like, do the one-to-one work, right? Whereas others we're scaling at a larger rate, like, our Cardinal Cupboard, for instance, it addresses an immediate need. And so then what's the support then to have the long-term need addressed? So. Is that what you wanted, Lily?
That was amazing. Thanks. You should throw that resource in the impact exchange. I can help you do it if you want me to. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I'm gonna just wrap us up and take us to the home stretch here. I've just got like one more slide on next steps. There's some good stuff. And just for, I know that you all know this because you were probably at the summit, but the student basic needs work in Kentucky is pretty extensive, and we are really working with an action network of about 40 to 50 statewide representatives, not like legislative representatives, but just like representatives of nonprofit organizations, workforce groups, our Cabinet for Health and Family Services and the Department of Community-Based Services, campus partners, student voice, different agencies like KY Stats and CPE. Anyway, that group has been working, and through research that is coming from a faculty research project and data from KY Stat, a policy scan that Carrie's conducted for us in Kentucky, where we are going to be putting together a series of recommendations that will help us as a state increase our capacity, enhance our communications, improve our partnerships, and really increase access to supports for students and increase access to secondary education for individuals receiving benefits. So this community of practice is like parallel to that work and is informing that work as well. So just my hopes for until we meet again, keep doing the great work that you're leading on your campuses. Feel free to reach out to one another as a resource as well. I'm going to follow up this conversation with both the meeting recording, with the PowerPoint deck, and then also some information about accessing more resources on student basic needs through the Impact Exchange. Our next community of practice meeting is Thursday, April 20th. We'll kind of reserve that 2-hour time. Our focus will be on community partnerships. And so we're going to have, like I mentioned, Family Scholar House, Department for Community-Based Services, as well as Thrive Kentucky, which is a coalition of many organizations and nonprofits that are working to enhance basic needs supports for Kentuckians. And then, so I hope you can join us again. And then the last thing I definitely want to put on your radar, and I will hopefully be able to include a link or an invite to this particular webinar coming up soon. But our 3 faculty researchers, we have a researcher from U of L, one from UK, and one from EKU, who have been doing this research project. It's very extensive, and it's all focused on student basic needs. They've done an asset map of resources available across our campuses, across all public and private 2-year and 4-year campuses in Kentucky, with website links to resources that are available. So let's say that your campus is, I wonder what we could possibly do around housing security. That's not something that we have a lot of information or haven't really, we're in the early stages. You would be able to look at this asset map and see, oh, well, there's a handful of schools that have housing security resources available on their website, and you would be able to see what that looks like. That's part of the research, but then also they followed up that asset map with interviews of a handful of campuses and said, here's what we found online. Now you tell us what resources you offer to students along these most pressing basic needs issues. And what they found was that there was a pretty significant disconnect between what students could discover online and what campus program administrators actually knew to be available to support them. And so again, kind of a communications divide, but also an access issue. If students are trying to reach out for support, having our information be up to date and accurate is a really critical component of that. And then the third element of this faculty research has been, they've been doing 18 focus groups across the state at 9 different institutions in Kentucky. So really being able to hear straight from the student voice. This might help us with some of the questions around communications, as well as what do students, what's their experience accessing our services? So awareness questions as well as experience using the services. And the faculty will be presenting on this May 23rd, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. And it'll be a Zoom meeting, but you'll be able to register to attend that. So that is all I have at this time. Any other final thoughts or anything else, any wishes from the group? Anything else you want to make sure happens in our next community of practice meeting? I'm all ears. Okay. Well, feel free to email me and I will definitely be emailing y'all to follow up. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I hope to see you in April.
Thanks, everyone. Great seeing you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.